Okay, on the beginning of lesson 11, we're going to talk about what 1,000 thousandths would be. So let's just say I have 1,000 thousandths. Now, how would I write that in standard form? Here's thousandths place, hundredths, tenths. What goes there?
Decimal.
So 1,000 thousandths is actually what? One whole. And it says it right here, doesn't it? Okay? One whole. So what would 2,000 thousandths be?
Two whole.
What would 5,000 thousandths be?
Five.
What about 7,000 thousandths? What about 65,000?
65. 6.5.
No, 65 holes is right. Okay, so what's so funny? So if I write this as thousandths, it's 1,234 thousandths. Did you notice that was 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so look at the next one. Now if I remember when I said, okay, let's think of this as a number bond, okay? So if I take out the ones, there's the ones place, right? Does yours look like this?
Yeah.
Okay. If I take out the ones, that would be my first circle, right? And then my second circle would be
247.
thousands. I guess what they're wanting us to write here is 65,247 thousandths, I think. Okay, so in this next part, all we're doing is taking out, pretending there's a number bond, deciding what to take out. Okay? So my advice is underline the place value that comes first, so tens, circle it, and then place the other numbers where they belong. Okay? Now the next one's a little different because it says to take out the tenths. So I won't just take out the 3. What will I take out? 763 tenths. And how many thousandths are left?
58.
Okay. Junior, can you see okay?
Yeah.
All right. So now if I take out the hundredths, I don't just take out the 5.
Take out 7,635.
7,635 hundredths and 8 thousandths. Okay, so we will use that when we're rounding very soon. Okay, this next part is review, and I really like it. So we're going to take it from unit form. Unit form is here, okay, and rewrite it in standard form. Plus, we're going to use that strategy of drawing an arrow to the place value we're changing. Okay? So let's start with standard form. 7,258. Remember I said 7,000 thousandths would be 7 whole? So that gives me this much information, doesn't it? Where did I put the 258? Behind the decimal. So 7 and 258 thousandths. Okay. Underline the place value I'm adding. What is the place value I'm adding? Thousandths. So I want to draw an arrow to that place value. Did you get it? Okay. Then we're adding how many thousandths? That's quite simple, isn't it? Okay. So if I take the 8 plus the 1, what do I get?
9.
Okay, that's pretty much the strategy we're using when we do the next 5 problems. Okay, they're going to be a little more difficult than that, but that's the strategy I want you to use. The arrow and then connect the place values that are changing, okay? If I were to write this in unit form, it would be 7,259 thousandths. And that period on the sentence looks a little bit like a decimal, doesn't it?
Yes.
See it right there? Don't let that confuse you. It's just a period on the sentence. Okay, did you write all that? Because it's not optional. You need to write it if I'm writing it. Okay, now do you remember how I teach you a strategy and then you can apply this strategy when things get harder? And if it starts getting really easy, then you don't have to use this strategy anymore? Know how we do that? Today I want you to use this strategy on these problems that we're about to do, okay? So 7 ones and 258 thousandths. Underline what you're adding. Okay, get your pencil and start writing. Which place value am I changing?
The
The hundredths. That's what I underlined. So some of you said the 5. You're right. There's a 5 in the hundredths place. What am I adding?
300.
300ths. So that means I'm going to add the 5 plus the 3.
8.
So we'll change the 5 to an 8. 7 and 288 thousandths. Now this is a lot simpler than putting it on a place value chart, if you can keep your mind organized, okay? And it's easy to get confused, so the first thing you do, underline what you're adding, then start writing it in standard form. So 7 and 258 thousandths. What am I adding this time?
410.
So draw an arrow to what place value?
10.
The tenths. Right? The tenths. See, they're trying to confuse you. That's why we need a little strategy. So I'm adding how many tenths?
4.
See how I'm connecting the 2 and the 4? So I know those are what I add together. Okay? That's what I want you to do. What's 2 plus 4?
6.
So I'll change the 2 to a 6 and leave everything else the same. Okay, you want to try the next one on your own? Okay. All I want you to do is look up at mine to check yours when you're finished. Okay, thumbs up if you did it right. You know what I almost did? I almost added 3 plus 4. It's a good thing I had my arrow there, wasn't it? Okay, this one's kind of a trick. Let's look at this one. So it says 2 ones, and are you comfortable? Because if you're not, you can always move, okay? And 37 thousandths. So it's not 2.37 because that would be 37 hundredths.
Oh, it's switched around.
Did you put a 0 and then 30?
037, good. Okay, I'll raise it up a little bit so you can see. And what am I adding?
5 tenths.
What's the tenths place?
The
The 0. Okay, so then I put 5 tenths there. So I'll change my 0 to a what, boys and girls? 5. Kind of simple once you get started, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oops, I forgot to connect those two. 0 plus 5. Okay, so now I have 6 ones and 35 hundredths. This is pretty important, what I'm about to show you here. In fact, I'm going to change the color of my pen so we can see it better. So I'm adding to the thousandths place. Well, there's nothing in the thousandths place. Do I still draw an arrow to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
It's a 0.
It's actually a 0. You don't have to write it, but that's what's there. And if I add 7 thousandths, I'm adding nothing plus 7. You're going to see this several times today. So my answer is 6 and 357 thousandths. Okay. Doing okay on that strategy? It seems a little bit of too much writing for right now, but keep in mind, when we start regrouping and going above 10, then it's going to get a little more complicated. So we need a strategy for when it does. Okay, the next slide is just the same thing, but it's subtraction. So here it says 4 ones and 8 hundredths. What place value am I changing? The ones place. So underline that. And draw your arrow to the ones place. So what is, how do I write 2 ones?
0.
Just a
No,
2.
2.
Just a 2. So I'm going to do 4 minus 2, aren't I?
Yeah.
What's the answer to that?
2.
And everything else stays the same, right? Okay, same strategy, but we're subtracting. Let's see if it gets more challenging for us or not. 9/10, 7 thousandths. What am I subtracting?
4,000.
The thousandths place, and it is the 7. Good.
Miss Concan.
Okay, you go ahead and do that one on your own. Okay, so what place value am I changing here?
7.
The 7. And I'm subtracting how many?
4.
Okay. 7 minus 4?
3.
She's on fire.
She is. It's that high stool she's sitting on. Okay, 4 ones. You want to keep trying these on your own?
Yes.
Then you can check it with mine, okay? Try your hardest not to look until you're done with the problem. Be careful on the last one. So let's take a look at this problem. Now I kind of gave you a hint as to what you're going to draw, didn't I?
Yeah.
So we'll read it, we'll draw something, we'll write a sentence to answer the question. Okay, so after school Marcus ran 3.2 kilometers and Cindy ran 1.95 kilometers. Who ran farther? How much farther? So who ran farther, boys and girls? Marcus, okay. So let's make his tape diagram longer than Cindy's. And Marcus has what on the top of it? 3.2. And Cindy, hers will be a little shorter. What did she run?
1.95.
Okay, now has anyone figured out if we're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Here's the question. How do you know we're subtracting?
Because it says who, how.
Okay, but there's something we're doing here that tells us we're going to subtract. Are we putting things together or are we comparing two things?
Comparing.
We're comparing two things, and when you compare two things, most of the time you are going to subtract, okay? So how do I make this drawing show subtraction? Because I didn't put my question mark on there anywhere. So where can I put my question mark to show subtraction? There are two options.
Oh, in both sides. Like on,
Square.
like in a square.
Well, I've got to add my question mark to my tape diagrams somehow.
Side of the square?
You're getting closer. So one way would be to pretend like Cindy's is as long as Marcus's,
That's right.
and then put your question mark there. That's one way. There's an easier way though. So would you like to see the easier way?
Yes.
So take Marcus's and make it shorter. Put your question mark there. Now what does that mean? That means how much bigger is this than Cindy's?
Oh.
So our answer will go right there when we subtract. Okay, now I want to get the app out. We're going to do this problem. You want to do it on the app first or on paper first? 3.2, right? How many decimal place values do I need? Minus 1.95.
Oh,
Correct?
yes.
Oh, I need 3 up here. Does that look right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the first thing you notice?
But they're like cute. They put a 0.
They did. They added a 0 to 3.2. Why do you think they did that?
So you can get confused.
Well, true, but I mean, I have to go ahead and subtract here, can't I?
Yeah.
If I do 0 minus 5, it's going to be negative 5. That will not work. So this is to illustrate that when I move these across, the 0 is going to become a 10. Okay? And then can I go ahead and subtract?
Yes.
And if you were any of you gone last Thursday, or did you all see this app?
I saw it on the video.
Okay, and so now, can I subtract here? Not yet. I mean, I could do one of them, couldn't I?
Yeah.
So I have to go over to the 3. And when I bring that over, it just adds 10 to the one that I already have. A lot of times kids mess up on that. They'll try and change that 1 to a 0 for some reason. So when I'm finished subtracting here, my answer is 1.25. Okay, so let's see what that looks like on paper. So 3.2, right? Write your decimals first, remember that strategy. When adding and subtracting. And then 1.95. Fill in with a 0. Now you do the rest. Your numbers aren't lined up quite nice and neat enough for me. There you go. So you have 1 and 25/100 kilometers, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when you write your sentence, it needs to answer both questions and be at least 7 words long. Come up with a sentence before you raise your hand. And it has to be at least 7 words. Go ahead.
Marcus ran 1 and 25 kilometers than Cindy.
That's not 7 words. but I think I can start with that. Farther than Cindy?
Yeah.
Is that 7 words? Nope,
That's fine.
that's 5.
Oh.
So what could we add to this to make it be
After school?
after school? Who said that? Awesome. So that's a 5th grade problem. Feel like you could do that on your own?
Yes.
We've got one like that, almost exactly, just different numbers, on your next test. Okay? So hopefully we're going to practice this strategy again. All right. Now for today's lesson. So I went to visit family this weekend, and I have a little niece that's in 5th grade. And I said, "Oh, Avery, what are you doing in 5th grade math right now?" She said, "Multiplying and dividing decimals." I said, "Right there with you. We're starting multiplication of decimals on Tuesday." Okay? So before we get started, I want to go back to what it means to multiply. So let's just take a problem without decimals, okay? Let's just take the problem 3 times 2 equals 6, okay? And your teacher might have drawn some plates and put some cookies on the plates.
Yes.
And if she didn't, she probably drew something else. She could have done an array, couldn't she? 3 rows of 2. Okay? She could have even put chocolate chips on each cookie. But anyway, what does this mean?
That's how much it.
If I'm going to put this on the place value chart, am I going to put 3 ones on there?
No.
No.
Why not? There's a 3 right there.
Because
You're right. You don't put 3 ones on there. I just want to know why.
you multiply.
Hey, Suze?
There's 3 circles and 2 in each.
There's 3 big circles. Do you remember what we called
Yeah.
those big circles?
Plates.
Plates.
Oh, there's
What? Somebody over here said it. Starts with the GR. Groups. So a lot of times when we are doing multiplication, we'll say groups of or copies of. Okay? Now I have a little boy, not going to say who he is, but he likes to work ahead of me in block 2. Okay? And he looked at this problem and he just started doing this. And I went, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's see what that really means before you start drawing. So if I'm going to read this as groups of or copies of, what does this mean? 3 groups of 2 tenths.
Oh,
So if I do 3 groups of 2 tenths, well, there's one group of 2 tenths. And then I've got another group of 2 tenths. And that gives me 3 groups of 2 tenths. Is that the answer? 6 tenths? It sure is. This answer was right. Okay? So looking at the second one, how does that change when I do 3 copies of 3 tenths? Not much, does it? We just put 3 in each row. Does this look like an array to you?
Oh, yeah.
The ants go marching 3 by 3.
What's an array?
I like putting songs in your head.
My 3rd grade remembered by red.
Yeah, did you sing the ant song?
What's that song? Oh.
The ants go marching 3 by 3.
Hurrah.
Okay, so
I think I was in 2nd
let's look at the next one. Maybe you were in 2nd grade. Let's look at the next one. It says 4 copies of 3 tenths. So could we just add another copy here?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 4 copies of 3 tenths. Now it says my answer is 1.2. So who knows what I do when I've got more than 9?
Round bundling.
Bundling. And you know all about bundling, don't you?
Yes.
So if I bundle 10, everyone bundle 10. What do we have here? Do we have 1.2?
One.
Yes.
1.2. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. It's a little more complicated, but not much. And I'll explain the area model, the long rectangle, in a little bit, okay? But let's do 2 copies of 43 hundredths. So here's what I want you to do. Start with 1 copy, okay? So 1 copy of 43 hundredths. That's what it looks like, okay? And you'll probably run into this on Zern, so make sure you're with me. And how many copies do I have here? 2 copies? 2 copies.
Oh, I thought we had one.
So what, does that turn out to be 86 hundredths like they have?
Yes.
There's 8 and there's 6, so it worked, okay? Let's go down to the next row. This is 2 copies of 423 thousandths. Start with 1 copy. Now, you might not think this is going to happen, but I'm actually going to teach you something new today. So don't start daydreaming. So there's 1 copy of 423 thousandths. And if you count your dots in each box, do you have 846 thousandths?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now, how's this next one different?
Oh, there's 4 copies.
There's 4 copies. So can we just add 2?
Yes.
So add 2 more copies in each. Hey, I should have done copy and paste, shouldn't I? Now we have a bit of a situation here. Because it looks to me like I've got a lot more in some of those boxes than 9. So will we have to bundle again?
Yes.
Okay. So bundle here. And then as you write it, put the number of dots you have.
2.
Okay. And then over here, 8 plus 1 more.
9.
Okay. Bundle again. Okay, now I want to show you the standard algorithm. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, if I write this using the standard algorithm, do you have room somewhere on your paper to write it? Okay, here's the standard algorithm. Now I'm sort of relating this to something you already know because I know you did that in 4th grade. Okay, now watch me do it before you do anything else, okay? So 3 times 4, what is
12.
it? Regroup the 1, write the 2. 2 times 4,
8.
plus 1 more.
9.
4 times 4.
16.
So I could regroup the 1 and write the 6, or I could just write 16, okay? Now, here's how it's different. I don't bring my decimal straight down. If I do, looks like it's going to be about right here. Or then I might put it there. That's not going to work in multiplication. Everyone stop and listen to me, okay? When you multiply, you have to count decimal place values. So what I have my students do is underline each digit to the right of the decimal. So go ahead and underline the 4, the 2, the 3 in the original problem. In the original problem. I think you copied your problem down wrong. Do you have 0 point? No, you don't. Why don't you rewrite that over to the side, okay? Rewrite what I wrote right here over to the side. So how many did I underline?
3.
So underline that many in your answer. Then place your decimal in front of the digits I underlined, okay? So that will keep you from making a mistake and bringing the decimal down in the incorrect place, okay? you have to count place values. Now, I'm just going to step ahead for a minute because I know what George might be thinking. Well, what if I have something like that? Would I have to count these two also? The answer is yes. We're not doing that type of multiplication yet, but when we get to it, you'll have your answer. You're going to count your decimal place values, okay? All right. On your next test, you have to know how to do the area model with multiplication. So I'm going to show you how to do this last problem, okay? This is going on the area model. I'm going to raise it up a little bit. Okay, so your whole number, 4 copies of, goes over to the side of your area model. Make sure you write exactly what I'm writing, okay? And then we are going to need 3 columns for the area model. There's a reason why we made it long and skinny. So then, take a look at the 4. What place value is it in?
10.
So I'm going to write unit form at the top. 4/10. To what?
200s.
200s. And 3. Now this will make a lot of sense to you eventually when we get done practicing. And then down here, we're going to do a little bit of addition to get our answer. And you might have to write at the bottom of your page on that. So do you see how I put a line plus a line plus a line and then equals? Go ahead and do that, what I did down here at the bottom. Okay, now have you ever done an area model like this? Only without decimals, possibly? We'll see. We'll see if it comes back to you. So what's 4 times 4?
16.
16. So I'm going to put 16/10 down. Don't worry about the lines yet. Let's just go across. Okay, eyes up here. 4 times 2.
8.
So 8 what?
100.
Hundredths. Okay, and 4,
12.
oh my, 12 what?
Thousands.
Okay, now the next step, do you remember that slide we did with, right here, where it started out in unit form and we changed it to standard form and then added? That's all we're doing. But we're going to do it with 3 numbers this time, okay? So here I am. 3 numbers. So 16/10, how do I write that in standard form?
1.6.
Awesome. 800ths.
0.08.
Emily, how do I write 12 thousandths in standard form?
0.012.
You're right. Okay, now we're just going to do that. Put an arrow to the place value I'm changing, but we'll just do the first 2. So what place value am I adding?
Thousands.
No, right here.
Oh,
Hundredths. So I'm going to put an arrow to the hundredths place. There's nothing there. So I'm going to add nothing plus 8. So my answer will be 1.68. Do you see where I wrote it? Okay. That's why I changed to blue, because I knew it wasn't going to show up. Okay, now that I have that much done, what place value am I changing when I add the next one?
8.
I'm changing the 8 and...
6.
No.
No, the
Thousands.
The hundredths and the thousandths. Good. Okay, so take a look at this. The 8 plus 1 would be what?
9.
Okay, so 1.69. And what about the nothing plus the 2?
2.
Is that what we got when we did it the other way?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the area model. Does it seem confusing?
No.
Maybe a little. Let's practice it some more. Okay. Now, the teacher that made these, which is me, left your lines off the bottom. So I think a good thing to do would be to go ahead and put our lines on the bottom now, at least for the first one. Okay, so the first one is 6 copies of 1 and 21/100. So where does the 6 go?
On the side.
On the side. So now we'll write unit form. How do I write this number in unit form? 1, 1. Good. How do I write the 2 in unit? 2 tenths. And 100th. Okay, now what's 6 times 1?
6.
6 what?
1.
You can't forget unit form. You can't forget your label of the place value, okay? Otherwise, you're going to end up with something that doesn't make any sense. 6 times 2? 12 what?
10.
And 6 times 100?
600.
Okay, now for unit form. So 6 ones in unit form is a 6. You might want to put a decimal there because you know decimals are coming. Okay? 12 tenths.
1.2.
Good. 6 hundredths.
0.06.
Now you're going to love this. What place value am I changing between the first two? Well, I'm changing both of them. I'm changing the 6, adding 1 to it. So what do I get? 7. And then I'm taking the 2 and adding it to nothing. So what do I get? 7.2. Trust me, you're already done. Okay, so did you write that much? Do you even have room to write that much?
Yeah.
Okay, so now that I have 7.2, I'm going to add it to 6 hundredths. So what place value am I changing?
0.
The hundredths. Draw your arrow to the hundredths place. So we're adding 0 plus 6 here. So we have 7.26. Anybody confused?
No.
Doing okay? All right. So, of course, I'm going to have to erase this stuff down here. But let's get the next one set up. Does it look like the same number of place values?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get it set up. And we'll practice it, and then maybe we'll have time to do the last one on your own. Okay, so 7 copies of this kind of tape diagram is on your next test. Some of you might be thinking, why can't we just multiply it? Well, because we're going to represent it with an area model. Okay, so did I put all the numbers in the correct place? Are you sure? Did you double check?
Yep.
7 times 2.
14.
Good. Thanks for saying the place value. 7 times 4.
24 tenths.
You're close.
28.
28 tenths. Now look at this. This is my best way to do. This is a hard problem. It was for me when I was a kid. It's confusing. So all I do, boys and girls, to visualize 4 times 7, I write down 4 7s and I do addition. Can you do 14 plus 14 in your head real quick?
28.
I like that this problem's hard too. This also works with 8 times 4. Now don't shout out any answers. But I write down 4 eighths, 16 plus 16. What is it?
32.
So that's a way to figure them out if they're causing you problems and you continue to miss them. Add them up, okay? All right, so then 7 times 100.
700s.
Okay. Now for standard form. So 14 ones.
144.
No, that's 14 tenths.
14.
14 decimal. I'm putting the decimal there so that I don't mess up. Okay, 28 tenths.
2.8.
That's what you were thinking of. And 7 hundredths.
0.07.
Okay, so what am I changing here?
The
These two
the tenths.
and the tenths, right?
Yeah.
So I'm changing both of those.
Yep.
So the tenths has a 0 in it, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so 4 plus 2, what is it?
6.
And then nothing plus 8.
8.
Okay, this makes it rather simple to add the hundredths in. So 16.8 what?
7.
All right, how you doing?
Good.
I think we're ready to try one on our own. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, whoops, thought it was on eraser. The next one is 8 copies of 2 and 34 hundredths. I have a feeling our numbers are going to be bigger this time.
Yeah.
8 copies of 2 and 34 hundredths. So do you remember how to get it all set up?
Yes.
Okay, only use mine to check your answer when you're finished, or check each step when you finish each step.